All right, good afternoon. Exactly 12:30 on the clock. Welcome back. It is still your favorite show, the Midday Show, right here on your number one talk radio station, Lagos Talks 91.3. Right now, we're about to kick off with parenting today. Are you a parent? Are you planning on becoming one? Are you a guardian or perhaps an aunt, an uncle, a godfather, a godmother, a grandparent? Then this show's for you. We know that the first unit of society is the family, and parenting is a foundation of that. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be limited to a family, but when it comes to playing your role to ensuring that you're doing the right thing as regards parenting, which would go on to ensure that society turns out wonderful individuals who had a not perfect, but like the right type of parenting given to them, nurturing and all of that, then this show's for you. I am not a parenting expert, but thankfully I know someone who is, and she's my co-host today on the show. Her name is Miss Yetty Williams. Now, she is the CEO of Lagos Moms. I like to say Global Moms. She's someone who has cracked several cheat codes when it comes to parenting, and she's someone I like to describe as the closest call to parenting perfection. Hi, Miss Yetty. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Paula. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Now it's great to have you, and I can, you can tell I'm stuttering. I have so much energy. I'm excited. This is because of today's topic. Now, today's topic is one that when I saw, I'm like, oh, Miss Yetty, you've done it again. You always have something for everyone. No one's left out. Today's topic is Spotlight on Boys and Men's Mental Health. Thank you so much for that. I don't think we do enough when it comes to talking about men and just the male gender and their mental health, knowing that society expects them to be this tough, rocks, hard man forged out of rocks and fire and lava. So they're just more or less, immune to feeling down and emotions. But hey, I will give you the spotlight. Can you kindly take us through this? Because I'm excited. I want to know better so I can do better.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, absolutely right. This is one of the areas we don't talk about as much as we should. For several reasons, how we're socialized, what we expect about the different genders, how they are raised, how they've seen their fathers and their grandfathers. So there's so much around, mental health, and then specifically mental health when it relates to boys and men. And especially in the African context, it's something that we haven't even scratched the surface of, right? We haven't even gotten to a point where it's very open, and there's no stigma, right, attached to having mental health challenges. There's no stigma around needing support, emotional help, feeling that, you've gotten to a point where you can't go any further, but then you don't just internally combust, you actually reach out and get support. That's not something that we have fully gotten to a point where everybody of African descent, let's even talk about Nigeria specifically, is now used to that. We're not yet there on a general level. Talk less now when we talk about the subset, right, of our population that are supposed to be the strong men and who should just figure it out. And the reason I've brought this topic up today particularly is last week, was it over the weekend, was International Men's Day. And, and one of the things that I find that's very easy to do is when there's a trending global day or trending hashtag, people can jump on it and do something that day and say, celebrating all the men, fantastic, International Men's Day. And that's when it tends to just end. I'm not saying there are not groups and organizations trying to highlight this, but that was why I said, let's also discuss this. Because the theme this year of the International Men's Day is actually zero suicide.
Oh, wow.
That's the theme, yes.
Wow.
But for us to get to that point, obviously that is the best case scenario in the world, and nobody ever gets to a point of such hopelessness that they feel that the only solution is to end it all. That's really what happens when somebody gets to the point of suicide ideation, and unfortunately sometimes then, carrying it out. So what we want to talk about today is how do we get into a point where we're starting to raise our boys into men. We're not saying we're done with the men that already are men today, or no. But what we're saying is, if we're looking at next generation, if we're saying what can the future look like, how can we raise boys who are more mentally strong, mental integrity, mental health for them is something that's part of their lives, and they never feel that they are weak because they need help. That's what I would like us to kind of talk about today, because there are things we can start doing in each and every one of us's homes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Miss Yetty. I can't say enough thanks for this. And to the men who are listening, without wasting much time, if you're a male listener, I know that our male listeners engage us a lot. And even the women as well. You have a male figure in your life in the form of a son, a brother, a partner, a parent, an uncle, or even a friend. You can call in and ask questions. Miss Yetty is going to be here to field off all of your questions. Now, if you want to join the conversation, you can start by reaching out via WhatsApp for those who prefer to use WhatsApp. The WhatsApp number 0809 234 5913. You can also call any of the phone lines if you want to have a chat with Miss Yetty and I right here in the studio. The numbers to call 0809 222 0913, 0809 234 5913, and 01515 1913. Now, Miss Yetty, very quickly, I know I like the fact that you're highlighting that we need to do more. It goes beyond being part of a trend or a hashtag. But from the much of the experience you've had, what would you say is a leading cause for men, suffering from all of these mental health issues? Is it suppression of their emotions, not wanting society to deem them as unfit and weak? Or is it a case of, I try to open up and no one would just let me do that? What do you think could be one of the leading causes for men, especially older men, who might, have issues as regards their mental health?
Right. I don't even want us to say older men versus young men, because I was looking at some statistics as I was preparing for this show, and suicide rates in the African region is actually the highest in the world.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to make sure that dropped. Not Western world numbers. In the world, suicide rate in African regions that have been reported, right? Because we also know that because in certain countries it is actually a crime, right? That in Africa, I mean specifically, it is a crime for somebody who attempts to commit suicide, right? True. So in terms of the ones that are even reported, they're saying that in the world, the African region has the highest number of suicide. So that is very important to keep in mind. Secondly, as of 2019, they said it's the fourth leading cause of death in men in Africa.
Wow.
And then 88% of adolescents who died from suicide were from low and middle income countries. So this stats should make it very real and apparent that this is not an Uyimbo issue.
Wow.
This is something that is people that are okay, that can start thinking about, depression, because we have all kinds of dismissive comments sometimes that people make, right? So when we say what are some of the leading causes of, what would make a man, an adolescent, a man get to the point of feeling that is the only option they have? Usually it doesn't happen overnight. Usually it's been building up over time. Right? Sometimes, obviously, there's a hormonal issues, there's chemical imbalances. There are many reasons why somebody can get to the point of that. And one of the things that we see is that depression is usually a leading cause that leads to untreated depression, for example, clinical depression. So not the person who just had a bad day and feels sad or feels a little depressed. We've talked about that on this show as well, that we want to be very careful not to overdiagnose. You can have feelings of depression, doesn't mean you are clinically depressed. It's the people who are clinically depressed and then they get no support whatsoever are the ones that sometimes it leads to this suicide ideation, and unfortunately, sometimes them doing it. The research also shows that men have a suicide rate 3 times higher than women.
What?
And yes, and when a man actually gets to the point of attempting to do this, usually they succeed more than women. What that means is that by the time a man gets to that point, he feels that there is no way out. So when he attempts, unfortunately, they are more likely, I don't want to call it successful because it's not, do you know what I mean? But they are more likely to fully carry it out than women. So,
oh, wow.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, like, just looking at this, I never really knew that it was more, would I say it was, based on stats and data, it's more prominent amongst men than women. But Miss Yetty, I want to ask you, for, the African culture, I like to, try to narrow it down to this part of the world. Our culture kind of maintains that stance that a man should be tough, a man should never cry, he should never be seen as weak. So do you think this is a contributing factor as, some of these men want to be custodians of culture and carry on what's been passed on from generation? Oh, I'm a descendant of warriors. What do you think really could be the cause of this, just the rise in male suicides?
Right. So, when people say things like, where we raise men to be strong, they're supposed to be strong and get on with it. I'm not against that, and I don't say that's not the reality. Sure, maybe we also, without knowing it, we raise women to be more nurturers because naturally we're more nurturing. There's some things that I'm not going to waste time saying, is it nature versus nurture? Some things are just what they are. However, what I believe we should be doing is looking at what the data is showing. If data is showing that this man of don't cry, men just take it, a tough man doesn't talk out, a tough man just gets on with it, bottle it up, bottle it up, bottle it up. That's one of the things that we teach men. And then with African men, they even carry it on their head more. We don't, you just bottle it up and internalize all the things you are going through. What research is showing, both from a science perspective, data perspective, is that emotions don't go away. So a man that's feeling, overwhelmed, feels like he's not good enough, feels that the pressure around him is so much. The world has changed from when things before were very simple, right? Or quote and unquote simpler. If we want to go all the way back, maybe the men will go out farming, right? They'll bring the things
and
home.
Hunting, exactly.
Hunting, bring it home. Then that's it for the rest of the day. Then the women are maybe the ones that take the food and cook it and prepare it and everybody eats. Now the demands that in the world that we live in is more. Everybody's working. Everybody is stressed. Everybody is on a hamster wheel. It's almost like it's never enough. And it's because of the world that we live in. Materialism has gone through the roof. Things are so expensive. Unfortunately, economy everywhere it seems to be crumbling. There is so much going on that is a pressure cooker. So if you now have somebody who is in a pressure cooker, but yet he's been told that your forefathers never complained, you just get on with it. But the world that you live in, you are now being cooked in a pressure cooker versus being cooked in a saucepan.
Oh, so the heat, the pressure is different.
Heat is different. So we must have to change what we are feeding people with, because if the pressures externally have increased to a level where you cannot compare a man's demands today to a man's demands of maybe 50 years ago, you can't keep using the same socialization from then now.
All right.
Something has to shift.
Something has to shift. I love that. I love the way you mentioned something that the dynamics have changed. So what our forefathers could have, endured, it might be a lot worse now. We might not be in the forest literally hunting, but we're still hunting. Men are still hunting nonetheless, trying to provide for family. If you want to join the conversation, kindly call in. You can call any of these numbers if you have questions for Miss Yetty. 0809 234 5913 and 0809 222 0913. You can also join via WhatsApp. The number for WhatsApp 0809 234 5913. All right, Miss Yetty, very quickly, what would you like to tell any of our male listeners, who struggle to admit, I don't want to say struggle to admit, but struggle to open up and share their fears, struggles, challenges with anyone in a bid not to be seen as weak? or less of a man? What would you tell such listener?
One of the things that I love focusing on is what we do want, right? So if we know something is not serving us, and we can look globally, whether data, all of these things, you can see that certain things are not serving us as humanity. Now, one of the things that's not serving us as humanity is bottling up your emotions and trying to figure it out yourself. Because if that was working, we wouldn't be seeing some of the statistics that for example, we spoke about on the first half of the show, right? Yes. We wouldn't be seeing that those numbers are increasing of mental health challenges, especially in men. So that means that this bottling it up is not working. So first of all, is accepting that, there's nothing wrong with you if you have certain kinds of emotions. And one of the ways I practicalize it is with my son. I remember telling him many years ago that, look, no emotion in itself is bad. Every emotion is simply an indicator of how you feel. So one of the starting points for anybody listening, whether you're a father, you're raising boys and you want it different, you're a mother raising boys, you yourself, you're a male listening to this and thinking, you know what, my default is to just stomach things, is to just, keep it inside. I feel that I can't talk to somebody, I can't be vulnerable. Those are so many things that we give to the female gender, that vulnerability is for women. No, we're humans, right? So one of the first things is to say that no emotion in itself is bad. If you want to even print out like an emotions sheet, I literally did this with my son. Because I was like, I want a boy to be different, to be emotionally intelligent. Once again, research shows that people who are in touch with their emotions, guess what? They're the ones who are better able to navigate whatever challenges come their way. But if you're too rigid that this is just the way I am, usually those are the people that cannot explore other alternatives. So no matter how you're feeling, if you're angry, there's a reason you are angry. It doesn't mean you are then allowed to lash out, hit people. No, that is maladaptive, a bad way of handling that emotion of anger. Same thing with if you are sad, you are feeling down, you are feeling frustrated. Those are emotions and you are feeling that way for a reason. What most of us don't do, whether you're a man or a woman, is sit down with that feeling and say, why am I feeling like this constantly? What in my life do I need to adjust or change so that this emotion that's in the red zone, right, starts to move towards green? If you even can just do that for yourself and pause and think, let me catch how I'm feeling, let me label how I'm feeling, and then what do I want to do with it? It is in that stage of what do you want to do with it that sometimes, guess what? That's where you need help. That's where you need somebody external that can help you to process that how step.
Wow. Thank you so much, Miss Yetty. Thank you for always making this a safe space for everyone. Now, I have a question from Daniel in Victoria Island. He says, hi, Miss Yetty and Paula. Interesting topic of discussion today. I'm curious about drawing a fine line between raising men who lose their masculinity and allowing men to express themselves. My concern is as a result of the rising stats of same-sex relations and whether being softer on men is causing us to open up to such relations.
There's many things that Daniel put into that question. So first of all, when we say that, drawing the line between somebody's masculinity and making sure that they're in touch with their emotions, once again, and I thank him for being honest, but for a lot of people, that is the leap they make. That if somebody is in touch with their emotions, that means that they're being soft, right? In fact, you will see that for quite a few people, I'm not going to get into that thing of or that space of same sex, but if you research some of the people that are in that, who are, some of them have actually gone through abuse when they were younger.
Oh, yeah, true. A lot.
Yes,
a lot.
Exactly. They went through abuse when they were younger, and that abuse was never dealt with. They never got therapy. They never spoke about it. So once again, they internalized what happened to them as children, usually young people. They got, unfortunately abused. That's why some of them, go that way because of what happened to them and it was never dealt with. So that wasn't because somebody taught them to be in touch with their emotions. That was something happened to them. And therefore, this is how they reacted and they grew up. And this is how. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And I'm very careful not to make, sweeping comments. But teaching a gentleman to be in touch with his emotion, to be able to say, I'm feeling angry right now. And because I'm feeling angry, I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to breathe.
Okay.
That does not make you weak. That does not remove your masculinity.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Miss Yetty. I have another question from Oreva. Oreva says, good morning. I'm a nurse and I just moved back to Nigeria recently from Dublin. I will say that sometimes it's better to have a man remain tough in order for him not to become more of a boy and less of a man. That is from Oreva.
Okay.
So I don't know.
So it's better to have a man to remain tough. I actually want us to discuss something called resilience.
Okay.
Resilience and grit means what? It means having the ability to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
It means being able to keep going even when things get tough in your life. Every human being requires resilience and grit, right? Mm-hmm. So we all need to be able to get on with life even when life is tough. So mental health, for example, healthy mental health means no matter what, comes at you, you are able to bounce back and you are able to, do what you need to do, whatever that means, to be able to keep going. Now, the extreme of that, obviously, is somebody who we then say, because we are raising you or we want you to be in touch with your emotions, that means that anything that happens, you just roll on the floor and say, oh my God, I'm done for. And therefore, now I need to talk to somebody, and then you never do anything except always looking for somebody to, talk to you to make you feel better. Those are extremes. And we're not saying that being in touch with your emotions means that therefore you shouldn't, actually be persistent or resilient. But I think this idea that, once again, with the lady that just sent that message, that she thinks it's better for men to stay tough.
Yes.
It goes back to, what does that mean? What does tough mean? For me, what tough means might be very different from what tough means for you. But what we're saying is, if it is somehow not working and we're having young men get to a point where they are ending it all, is this tough? Is it working?
How tough does it have to get before we know that sometimes it's a little too much for them? Yes.
And the person breaks. So let's talk about, what does this tough mean? Also, because we live in a world, remember the picture I painted earlier of a pressure cooker?
Yeah, and a saucepan. The heat is different, the pressure is different.
Yes, the world is so much more pressure now. If we keep saying just tough up, men don't cry, don't speak out, just bottle it up. Some of the problems we're seeing, the world has fundamentally changed and is not going back to how it was before. So we have to stop wishing for the days of our forefathers. We're here now, in a fast-moving, very dynamic, very intense, very demanding world. So what does that mean for us as humans, where our brains and how we are wired internally, that has not changed because the world is more demanding.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Miss Yetty. Daniel from Victoria Island, who asked the first question, says, fantastic response. Appreciate it. Thanks for the clarity, Miss Yetty. All right, Miss Yetty, before I let you go, how do you think we women can come in? Because we know that the world we're put in here, we're all in this world together, both the male and the female. We have our ups and downs, but nonetheless, how can women or females, girls, just anyone who's of the female gender help in, making the world a safer place for men to communicate better, to express themselves without, fearing being taken advantage of? How can we women play our part?
So 2 ways. One is, if you're a mother and you have a son, raise him to be able to explain how he's feeling, to use his words, In fact, if anybody's interested, they can send me a DM. I'll drop all of that later. I can send you what they call like an emotions cheat sheet, like an emotions chart. So that nice. Based on how you are feeling, you can label it. When you can label how you're feeling, guess what it means also in your brain? You're able to slow down your reaction, right? So that you're able to then think about the next step. And that's what we're really trying to raise people to be aware of, no matter your gender. So as women, let's give men room. When they say how they are feeling, don't say, I wasn't with you, a man. Those kind of comments too are very dismissive. And that doesn't help a man to feel safe in the environment if whenever he speaks up, the women in his life make fun of him, whether his mom, his wife, So that's something women can do, is allow men to also express themselves. I also think, so I've talked about the home environment. Women need to raise boys who can label emotions, think about how they're feeling and take steps. Women need to allow the men in their lives to express themselves when they are feeling somehow. And then thirdly, we need more men coming out and speaking, right? More men who are saying that, listen, guys, you don't have to chest it alone. You don't have to stomach it all by yourself. Life is going to get tough. That's part of living. So when it gets tough, the question is, what do you do with that? Some men, for example, their aggression, they take it out in different ways. So, for example, men that drink a lot, there's something going on internally, and then they're drowning it in the bottle. So there are many ways that this not speaking out can manifest itself. You know, So I just wish, if there's one thing I wish everybody could take away, is that however you're feeling is an indicator of what is going on currently. That doesn't mean that is how your life is going to be forever.